with Lightfall just around the corner, this means brand new legendary campaign, brand new day one raid, and a whole slew of brand new content, and definitely some more difficult stuff that'll be put into the game. I think there's a lot of sleeper builds that, even with the changes to build crafting, are really going to shine really well and be super useful. Even as soon as we get into Lightfall and we have no idea what to do with, build crafting and where to go from there, I think these builds will be staples, and I'm surprised not a lot of people talk about them as much. So let's get into it here. First one's going to be Sentinel Titan. This one right here for aspects, we're going to use Offensive Bulwark, and then we're going to use Controlled Demolition instead of Bastion. Why? Because Bastion makes your class ability have a minute and 40-second base cooldown, and this is all about spamming abilities as much as you can. But even more than just that is specifically what Controlled Demolition does for us. Hitting a target with a void ability or volatile explosion makes them volatile. Further damage to a volatile target causes them to explode, which grants you and nearby allies health when volatile targets explode nearby. This is massive. I've been using it for the GM farm this week, which is Glassway and Void Singe, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. It shreds. It does absolute work. So the fragments you're going to add to this are going to be Echo of Expulsion, Void ability, final blows cause targets to explode, Echo of Remnants. Your lingering grenade effects have increased duration, and that's going to be for our Vortex grenade to have a boost in just overall time there. Echo of Undermining, your Void grenades weaken targets. And then lastly, defeating targets with grenades grants volatile rounds to your Void weapons, which is good in terms of the amount of just good Void weapons in this game. In a GM where you need Overload, use Layman Arc, and getting a grenade killed gives you 7 seconds of just insane damage with the Layman Arc. Or, maybe, I don't know, Grenade Launcher, you have Unstoppable to deal with this season, or just Grenade Launcher is something you want to use in general right now. You could use Deafening Whisper, like I have mine with Ambitious Assassin, and this thing absolutely just shreds bosses because the whole wave is just proccing volatile on enemies and just exploding everything. It is so good. This build is highly slept on, and I recommend taking a look at it. I think you'll absolutely love it. The other piece that is to this will be the exotic. It's the Heart of Inmost Light, which at this point, if you play Titan, you already know what it is. It's using an ability, grenade, melee, or barricade, empowers the other two abilities. Empowered means abilities have faster regen, melees and grades do more damage, and barricades have more hit points. This is one of the best exotics, if not, I would say the best exotic in the entire video game. I don't really know what they're going to do with this. It probably needs a nerf, but we'll leave that for another time. That's not something we have to deal with. But this build is fantastic. There's so many different ways to play it. I would say weapon wise, you can really use whatever you want. You can do double special. You can do something like Parasite if you just want some big damage to deal with like some champs, or like I guess like the new Tormentors. If you're doing like Witch Queen campaign mission, like Hive Light Bears. This build is truly fantastic, and I recommend trying it out if you never have. Now on to the other build here. This one is going to be the Arc Warlock build. This one is a fantastic build. There's been a few videos I've seen about it, but I don't really see a lot of people using it as much. I know Solar Well Lock is fantastic using Starfire. Definitely I would say Starfire is my favorite build in the entire game, but this build right here is very sleeper, and I think has some insane use in endgame content such as GMs, Master Knight, or Master Dungeons, Master Raids. It has fantastic use. The only downside is to the supers. The supers aren't very good, which I definitely agree with. But anyway, let's get into the build here. The aspects you're going to want to run is Arc Soul. Casting your Rift creates an Arc Soul. And while you're amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged in case and gain increased fire rate. And you're going to be amplified like almost 24/7 with this build. So you're just going to have insane Arc Souls at 24/7. The other one, which is definitely the most important one in this build, is Electrostatic Mine. Defeating targets with your arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an Ionic Trace. Collecting an Ionic Trace makes you amplified. And so with that is going to synergize into the Fallen Sunstar. Improve, which is improved Ionic Traces. Ionic Traces you create move faster, grant you additional ability energy, and nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an Ionic Trace. So not only are you going to be getting what I believe it's like 20 to 25% of your entire ability back from one Ionic Trace, you're going to be sharing that ability energy to your teammates too, which is just some insane team comp, and this build goes nuts. And the whole point is to just have as many different ways to spawn in Ionic Traces as possible to just keep that cycle flowing of abilities nonstop. And so what you want to do then is just to have whatever can do Jolt, Blind, or Ionic, or to spawn in those Ionic Traces. So use things like Spark of Beacons. While you're amplified, your arc special weapon Final Blows create a blinding explosion. You could use something like a Forbearance, salvage your salvo. Really any arc special weapon. There's a plethora of very good ones, including even the new seasonal trace rifle, which looks fantastic, and I need to give a look myself. And then as well too, using the other fragment Spark of Shock, which causes your grenade to jolt. And then as well, Spark of Ions to channel into that. Defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace, which spawns in another Ionic Trace to give you even more ability energy. And this cycle would just flow and flow and flow, and it's so good. Now for the melee, I mean, you can really use whatever. I like Chain Lightning if, you know, I don't have to be at a distance because it does jolt targets, but you know, most like GM level content, I'm going to use Ball Lightning instead just for the range because I don't want to be point blank, to be completely fair. Lastly, for the fourth fragment you want, you're going to want Spark of Resistance here. While surrounded by combatants, you're more resistant to incoming damage. It just gives you some more of that extra survivability, which I think makes Arc fantastic. This build, so good, man. Please give it a try. I might not have done it justice with explaining it here because, you know, I don't know, I'm not the best like teacher or whatever, but this build is so good, and I really think like Warlock mains like me really need to try this out. So now actually we're gonna have two Hunter builds here that I want to go over, and I understand it was supposed to be more like, oh, not really, I guess, sleeper builds, not really talked about builds. Ignore the 112 for zones. I'll change that another time. But anyway, these two Hunter builds, I know they're pretty popular. The second one probably not as much as this one, but I think they just bring a lot of survivability to the table, and this one specifically brings a lot of team comp with in terms of like buffs, debuffs, stuff like that. I think it's fantastic, but yeah, let's get into it. So it's the Night Stalker Hunter here. Aspects you're going to use are going to be Stylus Executioner. Defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants Invis and True Sight. And your next melee you perform while Invis weakens your target. The other aspect will be Vanishing Step. Dodging makes you Invis. So the whole point of this build is to just basically use Invis to then pop out, use GYRFALCON'S to then proc volatile rounds, and then do, you know, just basically rinse and repeat that cycle, constantly spam Invis, volatile. It's going to do fantastic damage while you're constantly just going in and out of Invis, and you can use, you know, the ability of going Invis to your advantage to, you know, staying alive, getting off of enemies' aggro's, and not just getting instantly one shot. So I think this will be a fantastic build to bring with you into Lightfall legendary campaign. I think it's going to be absolutely fire. There's a plethora of weapons you can use too. SMGs, pulses, like the new seasonal pulse, and funnel web. I don't remember what the seasonal pulse is called. Hollow Denial is a very good weapon too if you want to rock like double special. This is, I love this specific role with this loadout. I think it is so fun to use, man. There's some good heavies there too. If you get a good row entry, probably better than mine, look for like Field Prep Clown. Very good rocket. I know they kind of killed this build here, but this machine gun is still very solid. There's also the new exotic machine gun we're going to be getting soon in Lightfall. I don't know how you're going to get that, but that'll probably synergize extremely well with this build. This is an S tier Hunter build, one of the best. It also has a variety with supers. If you're looking for something a little bit more boss damage, you can use Mobius Quiver. Or if you're looking for something a little bit more just like crowd control AoE, Deadfall is fire. I mean, you could even use Deadfall for boss too, just because of the, in like terms of how long the uptime is for the tether. It is fire. Now onto the fragments here. You're going to want to use Echo Persistence. Void buffs applied, do you have increased duration. This will also increase your Invis, Devour, And if I'm not mistaken, it even increases volatile. Don't quote me on this at all. I think it might. It probably doesn't. I'm probably lying, but I don't know. At least I thought it might have. Next one is Echo of Starvation. Picking up an orb, power grants you Devour. Pretty self-explanatory there. Finisher, Final Blows, granting Invis. Another way to get Invis if you don't have any of your abilities up. So you can keep the volatile Invis like ball rolling there. Echo of Undermining will be your last one. Your Void Grenades weaken targets. So that allows you to have 2 different abilities there to be able to proc Invis to then constantly go in and out of that cycle. So you have Snare Bombs, obviously, which will proc Weaken, and then your Grenades will also proc Weaken. So that's 2 free debuffs as well as 2 ways as well to go Invis to do the GYRFALCON cycle. This build is really good. Please give it a try. You will absolutely love it. Now to my final build here. This is probably one of my favorite solo builds to use in this entire game. I absolutely love Arc Strider. I've always wanted Arc Strider to be really good in this game, and I'm so glad Arc 3.0 really kind of made it good again, especially with the new super. But let's get into it here. So obviously using Arc Strider here. Super I definitely would prefer would be Gathering Storm. I think it's way better than Arc Staff, just for the fact that it's a one-off thing and you can continue doing the cycle here. For aspects, you're going to do Flow State. Defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. While you're amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly, you're more resilient while dodging, and your reload speed is greatly increased. And then lastly will be your Lethal Current. After dodging, your next melee has increased lunge range, jolts the target, and creates a damaging aftershock. Damaging any jolted target with melee also blinds them. So basically the whole cycle is dodge, melee, till you're at combination blow ×3 because of the combination blow melee, which at ×3 is a chunky increase of damage and will absolutely destroy things. Now, and to synergize in with that as well, you're going to want to use Assassin's Cowl. Now you can use Liar's Handshake. Liar's Handshake will give you some more damage, and it's a very good exotic, don't get me wrong, and it also has some health in it too. But I don't know, man, if you're looking for this for a legendary campaign or survivability, this one right here is so much better, because powered melee final blows grant invis, restore a portion of health and shields. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the duration of the invis and the amount of health and shields restored. The best part about it too is that even if your melee isn't up for combination blow, as long as you have combination blow ×1 to 3, just in general, even if you hit him with the non-powered melee, it'll still proc invis, and it'll just keep the cycle going. It is so good, man. It is fire. So for the fragments you're going to use with this, it's going to be all melee focused here. You're going to use Spark of Frequency. Melee hits greatly increase your reload speed for a short duration. This is kind of a iffy one. You don't need it if you don't want it. I mean, I don't use auto-loading shotgun, so I mean, go ahead to if you want to. It's up to you. Spark of Shock, your arc grenades jolt targets. I think this is just a nice passive bonus here. Just get some extra use out of your grenade there. And the most important one right here, Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. This is a massive one right here, because this build's all about being point blank and doing some big damage. So if they melee you back, you're going to hit even harder. And then lastly, pretty much the key center stone of like all arc builds is Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you're more resistant to incoming damage. With this build, you're going to be around a lot of enemies 24/7, so you're going to need that extra resistance, even though you're going to be invis. For weapons here, really just any 1-2 punch shotgun. Use whatever you want. I love using Wastelander. I just love its lightweight. You can use something like a Xeno class with like auto loading. I have one with field prep. I like it just because I get more ammo. There's tons of shotguns you can use. Doesn't even have to be arc. It can be kinetic like mine. There's a lot of weapons you can use for this. I would definitely like kinetic for the fact that I could use maybe an arc weapon, so I could use like Tarnished Metal, Ikelos SMG. There's definitely more arc weapons I'm forgetting about, like some special weapons if you want to rock double special, like Forbearance or whatever. And then for heavy, this one's up to you. You can use an arc like linear, arc rocket. I kind of like using tractor cannon with it, so you can spam a nice little tractor cannon 1-2 punch and just nuke bosses. Even without using Liar's Handshake, this build just absolutely shreds, and I would say is my top go-to build, and will definitely be a build that I will probably start the Lightfall campaign with, especially if I'm doing it solo, because this is the best solo build. It's definitely not as good for, I would say, team play. That's why I'd prefer the Void build if you're doing some team play, because if you can't get your combination blow stacks going, this build falls right flat on its face. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you coming into the video here. I'm probably going to have a few more videos to come out here before Lightfall. Got some work stuff going on. I'm also trying to get through COVID here. Hoping to be done with that here soon. But I'm going to be doing some GM farming on Twitch, even though, you know, I'm trying to muscle through COVID here. So check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/SuperDSX. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.